As we all know, Ubisoft has dropped the ball when it comes to the Splinter Cell IP. Now, I'm a huge Splinter Cell fan. I grew up playing the games, reading the books, and just following along on that journey that was Sam Fisher. Through all the good times, the bad times, the ugly times, I was there. There are 3 projects that I want to talk about today that are currently trying to bring back the Splinter Cell formula that Ubisoft hasn't given us in, oh my god, it's literally a decade this month. My name is Big Fry and I'm here to ask and answer the only question that matters. Are these games worth a f***? Be a legend, leave a like on this video, subscribe for more indie content just like this. First up, we have Spectre. Coming in at $24.99 USD, it's a thrilling competitive multiplayer experience bringing that Spies vs Mercenaries PvP gameplay that we got back in the early days of Splinter Cell. Asymmetrical attack and defend multiplayer that looks and feels like it released back in 1999, and not in a good way. I jumped in today for the first time. Yeah, I went and spent 32 Canadian dollars on it. Thanks, Trudeau. And what I got was a completely lifeless, empty experience. Everything from the player controller to the environment design to the visual style, the UI, the HUD, it all just screams low budget indie, which usually isn't such a bad thing, but in this case, it all just doesn't work. The menu has controller buttons to navigate, but I tried using a controller and again, just didn't work. The core fundamentals seem to be there, but the game is more mental than fun at this point. It feels like an early prototype build that a studio would decide whether or not to greenlight a project, but it's being released under the guise of early access, trying to grab feedback from their community that just doesn't seem to care or doesn't really seem to exist. Granted, I know I can't experience the true game without a player base, but I also don't think I need to go to a Discord and beg people to play in order to talk about it online. On top of that $25 price tag, I definitely understand why this game has peaked at less than 100 players all time. My instinct is to recommend lowering that price point to truly reflect the quality of the game, but if they did that, I think the devs would have to pay you to play it. Spectre is a game that should have remained in the dark just a little while longer, and by a little while, I mean until it was just ready to go. But looking at their early access page, they seem to think it is. They're calling this a late stage beta, and then the full version is planned to release with, new gadgets and new maps and new content. But I also feel like the developers haven't taken into account any time to refine and build out and flesh out and polish what they already have because they think it's good enough. Based on your player numbers and the mixed reviews on Steam, it isn't. Next up, we have a game being made by Night Division Games, and this is your more traditional single-player stealth game, obviously inspired by Splinter Cell, coming in at only $4.99. This game also looks, feels, controls, and plays like a low-budget indie title. The difference between Spectre and this, though, is they priced it accordingly. Using shadows, you can shoot out lights, stun enemies, conceal yourself, and play through 5 missions. That's $1 a mission. Unfortunately, even this game is succumbing to a low player base and quite possibly the lowest amount of players I've ever seen in a game, coming in at an all-time peak of only 3. The good thing about this, though, is it's not reliant on a player base. You can jump in and enjoy the game or not at any time, and you don't need other players to populate it to be able to get a good experience. This is the reason why we're doing what we're doing with Transients, and it's the reason why if I had to choose between the two, I would put Cloak and Dagger above Spectre. Personally, I also think Cloak and Dagger has a more cohesive and I would say stylized look to it that looks like it fits together a little bit better than Spectre does. Spectre has that game jam indie aesthetic to it. If you know, you know. Cloak and Dagger is definitely low budget, but it all kind of comes together in a more cohesive way. That being said, gameplay-wise, Spectre does offer a lot more than Cloak and Dagger does. Cloak and Dagger is definitely like a hobby project that a developer threw out for a couple of dollars just to see what people think. There was some effort put in there, but it is a bare bones project. Spectre offers more, it's still bare bones, but then they charge $25 for it. That's where the confliction lies. That being said, there is a third game on this list that I need to bring up to you guys that I actually just found while writing the script for this video. Those 2 games, not gonna lie, a little bit disappointed. So I went looking for more indie developed projects that are in this stealth Splinter Cell style, and I found this game. Nobody is talking about it. This is an upcoming project called No Sun to Worship. It's being developed by a solo dev who has brought that PS1 style visual back to us. I am a huge fan of what I'm seeing here. Going from Spectre, which in my opinion, again, looks like a low budget title compared to even Cloak and Dagger that has a more cohesive style, but this game has only been in development for only 7 months now at this point, which looks more cohesive as a project. I don't even know what to say. I wanted to download the demo from itch, but it is no longer available, so we just kind of have to wait for the release at this point, but it's now on my radar. From the little bit of gameplay that we have seen of this game, it's looking pretty good. Granted, everything about this game looks like it feels kind of janky with that indie style, gameplay to it. AI moving around in basic fashion. The animations going from aiming to back, it ain't it. But for a game that is kind of just in this experimental phase, it looks more cohesive and more well thought out and put together than the other two projects. Spectre is such an ambitious game for a small dev team to take on, which is why you see them cut corners in a lot of their things. The environment design, the UI, the HUD, the player controller, the fact that when you sprint in first person in Spectre, you can't actually just change the direction. It just feels clunky. It feels early, but at the same time, they're charging $25 for it. And I just don't understand where they can justify placing themselves in the market to charge that price point. I just don't get it. At this point, if you're looking for like a core Splinter Cell experience, but in the indie scene and not done by Ubisoft, you're probably just gonna want to wait for the Splinter Cell remakes whenever those come out. I'm actually hoping we hear something on the anniversary here coming up soon. That would be the perfect time to showcase what the remake looks like. You've been working on it for a couple years now. What the fuck is going on with it? But I can also say, even though Transience is a game that I am managing and we're putting together in this community, it is inspired by Splinter Cell, but it's not meant to be that indie version of Splinter Cell. We're taking those vibes from it, but it's not that like core third person skulking in the shadows gameplay that you go to Splinter Cell games for. I know there's a lot of gamers out there looking for this experience and they're just not being fed, and I'm hoping that changes, whether it comes from Ubisoft, whether it comes from the indie scene, I don't know. I just want to go back to when Splinter Cell was good. It hasn't been good for a long time, and we haven't heard shit about it for even longer. My name is Big Fry. I cover everything from indie to AAA, FPS, third-person shooters, stealth action, anything that interests me. And if you want to be along for the ride, hit that sub button down below. And if you guys missed my last video talking about a whole other IP that has been completely mismanaged by a AAA studio, click on this video right here. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.